You think you know horror? You haven't seen anything until you've entered the Museum of Lost Memories. A place where every exhibit isn't just displayed, it's alive with a chilling whisper of its past. Prepare to be unsettled as we reveal the disturbing truth behind those forgotten artifacts. The museum was never meant to be found. Hidden beyond the forgotten edges of Maine, swallowed by fog and forest, a relic of century-long buried in dust. Its name was never printed on any map, no listing in any registry. Those who stumbled upon it did so only by misfortune or by something else guiding them there. Some say it was built by an eccentric collector obsessed with tragedy, a man who sought to preserve grief itself. Others claim it appeared overnight, as if conjured from the collective sorrow of those who had lost too much. What we found inside was no ordinary gallery. Every exhibit was a fragment of someone's despair, a relic humming with the faint pulse of memory. A porcelain doll, eyes cracked but glistening with something almost alive. A music box that played even when the crank was still. A mirror that showed not the present, but the moment its owner vanished. The local townspeople called it the house that remembers. They spoke of the curator in hushed tones, a gaunt figure only seen through dusty glass panes, arranging the exhibits long after midnight. Yet, when the museum was investigated, there was no sign of anyone, only the faint scent of decay and the whisper of footsteps that didn't belong to the living. Our team was drawn there by accident, or perhaps by invitation. An unmarked envelope arrived at our office one autumn morning, sealed with red wax, containing only a set of coordinates and a note that read, "Some memories refuse to die." What we discovered inside those crumbling walls will still haunt us for the rest of our lives. The museum was divided into wings: Victorian tragedy, wartime sorrow, domestic despair. But as we walked deeper, we realized the exhibits weren't just about the past. They were the past, trapped, replaying, breathing through the objects left behind. And the deeper we went, the more the walls began to remember us. This is the story of the Museum of Lost Memories, a place where history bleeds through the present and sorrow refuses to rest. What began as an investigation became an obsession. What began as curiosity became our undoing. And by the time we realized what the museum truly was, it was far too late to leave. The entrance greeted us with silence, that thick, sentient silence that presses against the chest and slows the breath. Dust floated like spectral snow in the lantern light. Every step echoed back with unnatural weight, as though the floors remembered every footfall before ours. The first room looked harmless enough, an exhibit of children's toys from the early 1900s. Wooden soldiers stood in cracked formation, tin horses missing their riders. A jack-in-the-box sat close upon a pedestal, paint chipped, crank slightly bent. Daniel, one of our team, chuckled and said, "It's just old junk." But as he reached for it, the crank began to turn on its own. Blink, blink, blink. The song played unevenly, struggling to remember its tune. Then, with a sharp snap, the lid sprang open, revealing not a jester but a small porcelain hand. It curled once before going still. The card beneath it read, "Recovered from the home of Lydia Harper, whose daughter vanished 1907. We moved to the next display. A cracked mirror hung crooked, its frame carved with Latin about memory and loss. Daniel, still pale, lifted his flashlight, and there it was, his reflection. Older, hollow, lifeless. The reflection whispered back, "You shouldn't have come." He stumbled back, knocking over a case. Inside was a faded photograph of our team, standing in that very room, but the photo looked a century old. That was when we understood the museum didn't collect artifacts. It collected people. We pressed onward into the hall of domestic echoes. A dinner table perfectly set, a phonograph still turning, 4 mannequins seated around the table, wax faces eerily human. Their eyes followed movement. One held a fork mid-air. The card read, "The Morrow family, found seated at dinner. None ever rose again." The phonograph cracked and played, "Do not feed the house." Something shifted after that. The rooms began to rearrange. Corridors twisted into impossible angles. Paintings blinked. Voices echoed from behind the glass. One whispered my name. We were being watched, not by eyes, but by memory itself. We should have left, but curiosity, or the museum's will, pulled us deeper. At the corridor's end, we found a rotting sign. Private collection, authorized visitors only. And like fools, we descended. The basement smelled of rust and blood. The stone walls were wet, pulsing faintly, almost breathing. Behind an iron gate was the private collection. Inside were glass cases, but these didn't hold objects. They held moments. One case flickered, a family around a fire, smiling, until the fire grew and their smiles burned with screams. It looped endlessly. Another case held only a second. A scream so sharp it made the glass tremble. Plague Red, donated by E. Wallace, last heard 1934. Daniel shouted the walls were breathing. He backed into a case, and his reflection appeared inside it. He reached out, and his hand passed through. When he pulled it back, his skin had aged decades. His eyes were blank. He whispered, "I remember now." We tried to run, but the staircase was gone. The corridor had sealed itself. The exhibits began to hum, soft, then swelling into a chorus of whispers, every voice bleeding, remembering, calling our names. The museum was alive, sentient, built from the grief of every soul it had consumed. The curator was not a man, it was memory itself. We found Daniel's reflection in a mirror later. He was smiling eternally. The real Daniel was gone. I don't remember how I escaped. Perhaps I didn't. The footage we recorded ends with my face lit by lantern light, whispering something I can no longer recall. The museum burned down 3 days later, or so they say. But those who visit the ruins claim to hear a phonograph beneath the ash, a music box tune struggling to remember its melody. Some instant the museum reappears elsewhere, always near sorrow, always unmarked, always waiting. And sometimes, if you listen near midnight, you can hear the exhibits whispering through the fog. They call names. Some you'll know, some you won't, but all of them remember. Welcome back. This was the Museum of Lost Memories, and though it may be gone, its collection still grows.